Hello, my name is Dr. Tricia Groff, and I'm here today with my special guest, Dr. Yasaman Tasalloti. I am so glad that you're here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Groff.
So I want to explain for just a minute about why it was so important to bring you in. I think it's very important for accurately diagnosing and giving information that fields work together. And so that psychology and naturopaths, medical doctors share information for the most accurate diagnosis and treatment plans. One of the things that happened a couple years ago was that I was at a heart conference, and I learned there that metformin, a medication for diabetes, can be correlated with vitamin B deficiencies. And as you know, vitamin B deficiency is associated with depressive symptoms.
Absolutely.
Shortly after I was at that conference, I had a client with no history of depression who said, I don't know what's going on, I'm feeling really down. And so I just checked in, I said, have you had any medication changes recently? And she said, yes, I'm on metformin. And so I told her to go get vitamin B with her doctor's permission, and it was the fastest fix ever. And so I think that's an example of why I feel like if I'm not aware of what's going on with the body when I'm working with people, that there's a whole piece of information that I'm not paying attention to in order to give them the best advice possible.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So the way that links to you
Yes.
is that so many of my high achievers have chronic stress. And what I have noticed is that there's often more headaches. There's sometimes complaints of indigestion, more body aches, and in the mix with the indigestion and the tummy problems, I know that probiotics are very helpful. So I have this information when people come in, they're like, Tricia, I'm not feeling so good, and they think that it's all physical. I know that there's connections between stress and our gut and our overall well-being. But what I don't know about is the mechanisms and how that occurs. So when you told me that you know a lot about the gut-brain connection, I was like, yes, please talk to us. So can you explain a little bit more about that to help us understand how it all links up?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. And this whole brain-gut connection topic is so huge nowadays, and there's so much research being done. And there's a few mechanisms involved. So one is that we have something called the enteric nervous system, which we have a central nervous system, which is brain and spinal cord. Then we have parasympathetic, which is the nerves in the rest of the body. And then we have the enteric nervous system, which can work independently on its own.
Is the enteric system in our gut?
Yes, it is. So
seriously?
So
it's like all of the neurons, all of the cool stuff that's going on in our brain or our spinal cord, we've got that in our gut also.
Yes, we have about 100 million and even more than that neurons that are in the tissues of our gut lining. And so they're constantly communicating with the organs, they're constantly communicating with the nerve called the vagus nerve, which you might have heard of, which is for our parasympathetic nervous response, which calms us down. And so the gut is constantly communicating with this vagus nerve to communicate with the brain. And so the stress piece is related to the vagus nerve. But then there's the gut bacteria piece, which you might have heard of people talking about in terms of microbiome, microbiota, just gut bacteria, gut health. And so the gut bacteria actually produce neurotransmitters, which are chemicals for the brain, that keep us calm, that lower anxiety, lower stress, and they actually modulate cortisol, which is our stress hormones.
I'm going to pause and see if I got that right. So neurotransmitters release things called dopamine and serotonin. Two neurotransmitters that help us feel happy and, as you said, calm and relaxed. So there's neurotransmitters, those neurons are in our gut as well. And when those are released, they also modulate cortisol. So if we're really stressed and everything's working properly, the neurotransmitters are released and they're like, hey, it's okay. Did I get it right so far? Okay, and then how does that connect to take me to the next step?
So with stress coming into place, so we're creating these neurotransmitters with our gut bacteria to make sure our mood is stabilized, our stress levels are stabilized. And then in turn, cortisol, if we're really stressed all the time, that's going to actually disturb that gut bacteria balance, which will then disturb the neurotransmitters being made. So cortisol and the gut bacteria are in constant interplay.
So the gut bacteria assists with making the neurotransmitters and helping them function.
Yes.
Stress is going to kill that bacteria.
It can, like prolonged high levels of,
so chronic stress is going to kill that bacteria. Which then makes it difficult to have the neurotransmitters, which are the very things that we need to help us feel happier.
Yeah.
Wow.
And stress is one of the things. Obviously, there's diet, there's environmental toxins and all of that, but specifically cortisol can disrupt that gut flora. And there's actually certain strains of the gut bacteria that can send signals up to that vagus nerve I was talking about that can either improve our mood and our cognition, or it can actually disturb our mood and cognition. So these gut bacteria are talking to the vagus nerve, which talks to the brain.
So I gotta ask, what's the vagus nerve saying to the brain?
Well, it's sending it signals to then be able to
release more neurotransmitters inside of the brain?
Yes. Well, it releases the neurotransmitters from the brain to the vagus nerve to the digestive organs.
Got it.
And all the other organs of the body.
Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty neat.
That's fascinating, because then what I'm hearing is that this gut bacteria needs to be present, and it's operating on two levels. Both with the nervous system in the brain. What's that called again? The
enteric nervous system.
The enteric nervous system, and then also with the vagus nerve running up to the brain, giving it information so that information can come down from the brain to the gut and tell it more about what to do next.
Exactly. It's a two-way street.
Okay. So cortisol causes a collision.
It does. Yeah.
Okay.
I love how you put it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fascinating to me. And I guess it's what I'm passionate about, because years ago I was like, okay, stress, whatever, it's not good. I guess I'll. But now, as I've learned to see the effects of it and to really take it seriously, it's interesting that it can affect things at so many different levels.
Exactly. Okay. So those are two things: the vagus nerve, making sure we're in this relaxed state, because one of the other things is you want to be in that parasympathetic state, so you can actually digest and absorb those nutrients that you're eating, that you're working so hard to get that good nutrition in. And so when we're in this stressed out state all the time, all that blood is leaving the center, the core of our body, and going to our arms and legs, and so you're not absorbing those minerals and those vitamins that you need.
Thank you so much. That makes perfect sense to me. So I'm going to go into just a little bit of that for our listening audience for a second, because I know that sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems are a lot of big words. Sympathetic nervous system is the arousal system, and that's what kicks in when we're in a fight or flight mode. Most of you have heard of that. The parasympathetic nervous system is what helps us relax and be calm and know that everything is okay. And what we know is that sympathetic nervous system, energy is going to be diverted from our gut so that we can run fast. Our digestion isn't going very well when we're really freaked out, which is why if you're nervous, generally you're going to feel butterflies in your tummy. The parasympathetic nervous system, when we're relaxed, is really when the digestive kicks in really well. So that's parasympathetic and sympathetic.
Yes.
And you're saying that the gut bacteria also helps to keep the parasympathetic nervous system operating as it should, or did I miss that part?
That's perfect, because it's creating these chemicals and neurotransmitters to help calm us down and relax us and keep us happy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And one other piece. So the gut bacteria have so many other functions, but another one, as it relates to this whole stress, is for sleeping. They actually help produce these proteins called cytokines, which help put us to sleep at night. So
how do they do that? I'm so sorry. If you don't know, that's okay.
I just know they help in the production of the cytokines.
Okay.
Yeah, and so again, if you're chronically stressed and you're not producing the right amount of the gut bacteria, then you're also going to have sleep troubles at nighttime.
Okay.
So the whole, like, if you're stressed and you don't sleep well, so it's like this constant interplay. Yeah.
That's fascinating to me, because when I think of sleep, I think of the psychological side. I think of people worrying and their mind racing.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting then that stress is now going to hit both from a person because they're worrying and so their mind is racing and they can't sleep, and because they don't have maybe the gut bacterial. So now we have cortisol that are possibly hurting the gut bacteria, which then isn't creating the, what's it called?
Cytokines.
The cytokines, which then interrupts sleep from physiological level.
Yes, as well as the serotonin and other neurotransmitters.
Wow, that's amazing. Now it's like a 3-car pileup.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend that people do with all of this information? And so what's something, if I was just like, okay, this is a problem, what should I do tomorrow to help improve my gut health?
You could absolutely get tested. There's a lot of functional tests because a lot of people are like, well, how do I know whether my gut is disturbed? How do I know if I have enough gut bacteria? Things like that. So there's a lot of different testing to assess for your gut health. But if you want to start taking measures, there's absolutely got to be dietary changes to be made. And there's so many, but I would say that eating as many cultured, fermented foods, which help with bringing more beneficial gut bacteria to your gut, is definitely a must. And then reducing all the sugary foods and the trans fats and all the things we know we shouldn't be eating.
Okay.
Yeah, having an anti-inflammatory diet.
Can you give me a few foods in there? Because one of my high achievers who is so motivated, she's like, Tricia, what's processed versus non-processed food? And I was literally going to start taking pictures from the grocery store and sending it to her. So if you could give us just a short list of maybe some foods that would be really great and those to stay away from.
So processed, anything that's in a box or a package, typically you want to stay away from and just go to whole fruits, vegetables, grains, leafy greens, which have a lot of the B vitamins that you touched upon, are really good. But literally any kind of vegetable, they're just packed with nutrients, minerals, and we're not talking about just taking celery sticks and chewing on those all day, but like...
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking, oh my gosh, the people watching are like, there we go, eat celery sticks and carrots. Okay.
Nowadays, I mean, if you just go on Instagram or Pinterest, there's so many great recipes that actually look appetizing and they're super healthy. So there's so many ways to make veggies taste good.
Okay. And then what about the fermented thing? You said that we should eat, what's the stuff that I should make sure to eat to increase the bacteria?
So the sauerkraut, the kefir, the kimchi, which they sell.
What's kefir?
Kefir is fermented yogurt.
Okay.
Yeah, so they sell all of that at the natural food stores like Sprouts, Whole Foods, Natural Grocers. They sell it in the fridge section. Pickles, but again, it has to be the really organic, good kind.
Okay.
Because when I tell people to eat sauerkraut, they're like, "Oh, that's disgusting. That's the stuff that they put on hot dogs at baseball games." But I'm like, "No, not that stuff. The ones that they sell at the natural food stores."
Okay. And is there something on the label that would tell me, because I can encode sauerkraut and fermented, but would it say fermented or would it say full of probiotics? What would I be looking for to tell me that it's the right thing to buy?
Typically it would say probiotics or live cells or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That sounds like, so fermented and rotten with lots of bacteria is what we want to eat today.
Yes, exactly. And then another thing would be for sleep, to have proper sleep hygiene. And there's so many steps to take, but two of the biggest ones are completely darkened rooms.
Okay.
Like no light coming in. And then two is setting your room temperature to 68 or less. Wow. 60 to 68. It makes the biggest difference in the world. And I've had so many patients actually do that, and like it's made a significant impact.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So diet, and then the sleep, and then, I mean, there's so many other lifestyle modifications.
Okay. I see high achievers, they are so used to thinking about things logically. And so at some level, they're like, this won't impact me. And what I've seen is that it doesn't matter how smart you are, stress and the cortisol is going to win. The whole mind over body, mind over matter, it's not going to work with this case. And so my advice for high achievers is to, actually there's two pieces, to start really being aware of what situations stress you out. And as I say that, what I find is that there's some people that are so in my head, and I can do this sometimes, that they even lose touch with what's going on in their body. And so sometimes I will ask people, if something happens that upsets you, do you feel it in your chest? Do you feel your shoulders tightening? Do you feel it in your gut? Oddly enough, there's no statistics with this, I don't think. I have men telling me that they feel tension more in their chest, and women will tend to feel it more in their tummy. But either way, I advise you to notice what your body is doing when you're stressed out, so that you can build a bit of a grid and figure out what situations and people cause that stress, so that then we can figure out a plan in terms of reducing the stress, thereby decreasing the cortisol,
Absolutely.
thereby protecting all of the gut bacteria,
Yes.
which then influences our
Yes.
positive mood and our sleep.
Yes, and that's why I so love what you do, because it has to be the mind-body medicine coming together.
Yeah.
I mean, the diet has to be in place, the exercise, the lifestyle, but as does the training and reprogramming those thoughts and those emotions to serve us and not be
Yes.
against us.
Yes.
So,
I'm
yeah.
so glad that you said
Aw.
reprogramming thoughts
Yes.
and emotions, because our bodies get into patterns, and
Yes.
that would be a whole different video
Yeah,
on that. So again, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you so much for having me.
We learned that we have a whole nervous system in our gut, and that there's bacteria there that we really need to protect because it helps with our mood and our sleep.
Yes.
That we should eat fermented food, and that we can find that in various healthy grocery stores.
Yes.
And also that it's really helpful, one of the takeaways was to keep a really dark room and a low sleeping temperature. I think that you said 68, was it?
Yes. Yeah.
For optimal sleep.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
You've given us such great information today. So if people want to find you and contact you, how would they do that?
They can go to my website, which is dryaznd.com, and they can follow me on Instagram or like me on Facebook.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
coming,
so
Dr.
much for having
Tasalloti. It
me,
was
Dr. Groff.
fantastic.
Thank you.